So, my name is Kim Behrens. I'm an extension educator up in the northeast part of Nebraska. I've been in Nebraska, I hate to tell you this, but probably over 30 years. And I was so tickled here a couple of months ago. Shane gave me a call and telling about his project he was putting together to work with volunteers for the 4-H clubs. I've been in 4-H a long time. I met my husband through a leadership conference when we were in high school, and we kind of followed up and met each other again at K-State. And after we graduated, we got married. So I have to say that 4-H has been a big part of my life. My parents were in it, my grandparents were in it, and I'm originally from Greenwood County, down by Eureka. My hometown is Madison, if anybody knows that spot. And I've been a 4-H leader, I think, for 18 years, which is tough to do as when you're an educator also. But we were in Iowa also for 3 years, and I had like 42 kids from 4 different school districts. And so it's always a juggling act. And I remember being the 4-H leader and the organizational leader and trying to put together ideas and do things with kids. And it was always interesting, and it's fun, and I love it. But sometimes you need a little help, and that's why we do these types of programs. I've worked with Shane off and on. I feel like he's never too far away, but we connected a long time ago, and in the college and career readiness area, that's still a focus that I have. And we were on the same team for a long time and worked very well together. And I really appreciate, Shane, you giving me a call to do this and share this information. And, the funny thing is we were talking about doing a barn quilt program again this year with our 4-Hers. And so for me, the transition was wonderful, and I'm doing it anyway. So I'm prepared now to start back with my kids again. And we just updated everything in our fair book for next year. So that's kind of where we're headed. So I don't know. What else do you need to know?
I think that was perfect, Kim. Thank you. Yep. And so you're all in for a treat. Kim is really good at telling stories, so we'll have lots of good pieces. Kim is one of my favorite people, so I'm really excited that we actually have a chance to bring Kim. Again, it's not quite the same as being in person, but we do what we can.
Well, I'd love a trip to Manhattan, but next time. So, okay, we're going to share my screen here. We're going to get started. And before we start, and Shane said it too, I'm pretty casual. If you got a question or an idea or a remark or something that you do, this is interactive as much as we can on a PowerPoint and on a Zoom. But I'm always looking for ideas too. So there might be something that you've done that we could share with everybody else too. So that'd be awesome. So I'm going to share my screen here and attempt to get this up and going. And Shane, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see the PowerPoint right now.
Okay. And so do you have barn quilts in front of you?
Yep, it looks good. You're in presentation mode. Perfect.
Okay. All right. Super. Now, I'm doing this from a rural area. I've turned off all my internet and all my devices. You still may lose me. So Shane has my backup just in case, because I'm out on the farm. And we'll go through this. And I hope I'm able to stay with you the whole time. Anyway, so several years ago, Phyllis Shaneholtz was an educator with us, and Shane will remember her, and she did a fantastic job with quilting and barn quilting. We've added to that, we have a program in our Quilt Quest area at the county fairs and the state fairs that we have a section for barn quilts. And so my question is, do you all have one down there in Kansas? No. So think about maybe putting in a barn quilt area, even if it's a county only project, that the kids could bring this in and do it. But we, years ago, Nebraska put together that Quilt Quest program that you're going to get from Shane if you get your name drawn, and you're lucky today. But it's a really cool program, and you'll learn a lot. And that kind of started out with another project that we do also with quilting, is the Quilts of Valor. So we have a lot of kids that are making patriotic quilts, and we'll take them to the fair, state fair, local fair, and be judged also. But then they come back and we hand them out to our veterans. And that has been fabulous for us. And we've also had barn quilts that have done patriotic colors or as a flag. And you might want to consider doing that, or identifying, some veterans in your area. And we share those, and the kids make them and give them out to our veterans, which is a really fantastic idea. So we're going to start a little bit. So
Kim, you're coming through pretty good. While you're sharing your screen, maybe this was a good suggestion from Paul to conserve some bandwidth. If everyone wants to turn their video off except Kim, then we can turn them back on when we do questions. Right now you're coming through just fine, but we'll just to make sure things are going to go
super
smooth. Yep,
that'd be great. Okay, so I sent earlier a handout list. So there's directions on all of this, but I want you to know, and as you look at this first slide here, there are websites on this slide show. You are also welcome to use this. Shane, if you can put that up for them, I don't care, that'd be great. But it's also on that resource list. So if you want to look into this more, there's a lot of resources and ideas and things that you can get. So just so you know that going in. So originally, barn quilts kind of came through Pennsylvania on the eastern side. And some of the quilts that quilting ideas that they put together years ago. I don't know if there's any left, but we have examples of them, and people have talked about them in their history. But they were brought through the immigrants that settled really in Pennsylvania, and then and the Amish, the Mennonites, but it's slowly coming across to the Midwest, and it took several years to get through. But originally, they had such a hard time finding paint and to decorate things and make things look good. And so when they could get a little paint, they would do a barn quilt, and it helped tell a lot of the story of their heritage or their background. And they also used it sort of as a identifier, if you would. So when people would come to visit or make a long trip out there, they could say, well, we have the big red star on the pole barn or something. It was also kind of a marker where we, back then there was, turn left at the big rock. So it's been kind of a cool thing through the years. They've had smaller designs. There's all types of designs. And as you go across, it's kind of interesting. There's a website you'll find that you can pull up, and it has all of the sites per state. And so you can kind of look at some of those. It's a really neat website later on. But originally when it started, that's kind of what they did, is to help locate and find their farms and help travelers along the way. So back in Manchester, Adams County, this was maybe one of the first ones. And Donna Sue Groves is an author, and she put one together to honor her Appalachian heritage and to honor her mother. And I think this is really, really cool. But she was one of the ones that started the grassroots effort for this to go across. So there's a book by Susan Parron. She's a historian and an author, and she talks all about the quilt trail as it comes across. But this was one of the very first ones, and the lady we can trace it back to really is kind of Donna Groves. So you can see different on this website below. It's called piecetogetherdoc.com. And this is a really cool documentary that you can connect to. And if you have a group of kids that are interested, I find when we teach, it's a really good thing to give them some background, give them some history. I like the hands-on, and that's wonderful, but they need to understand the reason why we do what we do. And this is an old craft that has been brought forward, and it's kind of making a research. So if you can pull up some of those sites or those resources when you're working with your families or working with your kids, and look at that. But she put together a really nice documentary, Donna Sue did, that you can follow through. Back in, I want to say, I don't know, 2013 or so, doesn't seem like it's been that long ago, but we had Sue Parron come out to Geneva, and I wasn't able to go, but a lot of ladies were, and she talked about the barn quilts and the trail movement as it moved across the U.S. But it's really cool to watch the different types of ideas and the different, I don't want to say flavors maybe, and the type of craft or how you paint them or what you put on them. It's really interesting. But if you can get someone to come in and visit or talk to, that would be great, someone that has done this. Phyllis Shane Holtz, who we talked about earlier, kind of started this in Nebraska about back in 13 and 14, and she just really kind of set things afire for Nebraska. And of course, she's an educator, so you know that enthusiasm and that idea, we just immediately dropped out into our 93 counties, and it wasn't a competition, but we had a lot of kids that really picked right up on this. And it was about the same time that Quilt Quest material that you're going to get, that Quilt Quest manual, was kind of new. And it's a nationally known awarded program that you're going to get. It's really cool. So we kind of pulled all this together and rolled it across. This was that clickable map I was showing you. It's cool, and you can, when you get home, pull it up on your computer, but you can click different places, and there's 47 states that have barn quilts. But what I think is cool, and we'll talk about, I've got some other things I want to show you in a little bit, but you might want to think about, like in your county, how you're going to roll it out and advertise it and use it. If you're going to use it as a map, or you're going to use it as a tour, it would be kind of cool to do to see. Our club years ago, and I still do it, and our club was called the Madison Pacesetters 4-H Club. And my grandparents were in it, so it's been around forever and ever, and always in the summertime. And it's about a week or two before fair, we have a club tour. And so we go to everybody's house, and the kids, when we're at your house, your kids would show everybody some of the things that they've done. They'd take them out and show them the cattle or the sheep or the hogs. If they were in cooking, all the cooking kids would get together and they'd make a lunch or a snack place and for everybody to eat at. And then they'd have craft, whatever. And a lot of the people, and we started up here when I was first up here too, when my kids were little. And then they could show off their barn quilts. That would be a cool thing to do if you were doing this in a club, to do a barn quilt tour and a general 4-H tour to see what those things were. The best thing my dad loved about this was the fact that, oh my gosh, we got people coming. So we had a whole week's worth of clean up the farm and get ready for company, So we spruce up once a year. paint everything and get ready to go. But you could do that. This is one of the ones I was showing you. So there's a lot of quilts in this area in Nebraska. So these are, we lived in Iowa for a little while too. But if you drive across Iowa, Iowa is covered with barn quilts, and Iowa has really cool farm buildings. Really neat barns. Not so many big, the old wooden barns are left up here. I'm out of the Flint Hills, and so we have pole barns. We don't really have barns like this too much anymore, but Iowa still does, and they maintain them very well. And I just thought this was cool because you can get an idea of all different kinds of, I mean, these are huge. These got to be two-piece, 16 by 16 when you get done. But I think they look absolutely great. And I wanted to give you some ideas on what they look like. So we have one on the left that is a regular painted board, and they've applied it to the barn. And the one on the right was, and I can't believe they did this, they actually painted it on the barn. And I can't imagine, look at the slope. And that's what I looked at. Okay, so number one, I'm not very tall, so I couldn't reach it. But number two, look at the slope that they painted this on and how well they did. This is a wonderful picture. But I have to tell you a story. Shane was talking. So 10 years ago, we did our barn quilt program with 4-H kids, and I had about 15 kids come in, and that was great. And I made my sample for all the kids. We made it was 4x4, 4 foot by 4 foot. And I brought it home, and I was so proud of it. And I varnished it really well. And up our drive, right at the top of our drive, we have a little shed there, and then you turn over to the house. So right at the top of the drive, you'll see it. So I put it up there, and I was so tickled, and we put it up right before fair, and everything was great. It stayed there all winter long. And then one spring day or one early summer day, I come home and I'm like, what in the world is different? And that barn quilt was totally different on the wall. And I'm like, what is going on? So that night, Kent got home from the field, and I said, what happened to my barn quilt? Well, he didn't like the colors of it, so he decided he was just going to change it. So anyway, we had quite a little discussion about him painting my barn quilt, and he painted it while it was up on the wall. But you might want to talk about coordinating colors with your hubby. I had to laugh. He really had to hate it to have done that, but he had to really do it fast because he did it in one day before I got home from work that night. So he's always doing stuff like that. And Shane's going to laugh because he knows him well. So anyway, this is one they're actually painting on the barn. And I would, if at all possible, recommend that you don't do it that way because it's really tough. But he's up on the scaffolding, and they've had to hand all the paint and everything up to them as they're doing it that way. But there's some really cool ideas. So there's a little town called Pender up here that's about 20 miles from me. And they had a 125-year celebration here several years ago and decided there was a group of ladies in town that decided they were going to put together and celebrate their 125 years of existence with barn quilts. And a little town it's got less than 1,000 people. They had 125 different houses, families put together barn quilts for their house in town. So they're not really huge, and they're kind of all over. But they did advertisement. They put together what they were, and I wanted you to see this flyer that they put out. So they put some ideas out, but these ladies got together and kind of coordinated the whole thing. And I thought, for 125 different families to come in, it was such a cool idea, and everybody kind of really bought into the idea of solidarity and doing something. And they've all put them at different places around their houses, but they have a regular tour, and they have a handout that you could get at the city office on who's got what quilts and what the name of the quilt was, and maybe a little bit of history about that family. I just thought that was a really neat deal, and Pender did such an outstanding job. And it's been several years ago, and those quilts, when you drive through town, are still up on many of those houses and sheds in town. So you can kind of see where Pender's at. If ever you're out and about up here in the northeast part of Nebraska, you can kind of look at different ideas. Some of them just put them out in their yards. Some of them put them in their fences, up on their houses. Well, the population, it was back in 2010, but it was quite a little effort. And they called it Quilts of Pender Q125. But they did that all in one whole year, and they coordinated it very well. And it was just a really neat thing. Now, we talk about quilts and quilt patterns, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all about quilts. And I don't know about you guys, but in my family, our blood runs pretty green, not red, not IH, not case. So Kent collects tractors, and he's got little toy tractors and things all over the place. But if you are a family or have someone in your family that really enjoys working with old tractors and likes something special like Massey Harris or Case IH or whatever it is, these are some ideas that you can put together and put up on your wall, and your husband probably wouldn't repaint those. So just some ideas, but I thought those were kind of cute. And we've got a lot of families up here that collect old tractors, and there's quite a few people across the state. I'm sure down in Kansas you have it too, that work on old tractors, and that's kind of their summer job, or their winter job, where they're waiting for the snow to go away so they can get back in the field. So I just wanted to throw that up out there for you. Now, over in Jefferson County, I put a couple of these in. I thought these were kind of neat, and they've put them up on their barns. But this one, this particular kid did for 4-H and FFA. And so that might be something that you do for your fairgrounds. That might be something that you do for home or school, if the FFA kids wanted to design something and put it up there. But he'd done one for 4-H and one for FFA. And these are his fair projects. You can see the purple ribbon he's got up there. He was really tickled with it. But it's something that's kind of a lasting thing that would be really neat. And I just put some more possibilities for you to look there. Our fair this year is going to celebrate their 135th fair. And so we thought maybe we did this 10 years ago with 125. And so we're kind of gearing up, thinking of a logo and what we're going to do. But I would really like to paint a 4-H motif and put it up in the livestock barn. We've got a big barn out in the fairgrounds. But I'll have to talk to the fair board first, but I think I can get it done. And I think that's kind of neat. But maybe the kids design it, or we have a design contest and have them put together ideas and then have them work on that, while we're doing the other ones at the office. So up here, you can see in that top right-hand corner, you have to think about the size and what's going to be proportional and how it's going to look, and then also how you're going to hang it too. Some of it, painting it sometimes is the easiest part. So also, and you don't think about it, but if you sit back and just kind of concentrate on these pictures, you can see how they move. There's some movement in them, and it's how you put the design together. I really like the windmill, and the one I put together was sort of like that, that I brought home. But think about where you're going to put it and the color scheme that you might need. I painted two. When we repainted, we moved down into our new offices about 2 years before we did the barn quilts. And I just took some canvases from Hobby Lobby and got some extra paint that I painted my walls with, and some paint that would coordinate. And we made some two, one for the front office and then one for my office in the back, and hung them up on the wall. It's just a quilt block, but it's made out of the paint that I painted my walls in my office with. So that was kind of a cool deal. And you could easily put that in your house or your office too. So I think I love these. I like the one on the bottom too. When you watch and you look, you can see the movement in the picture. Now, something we don't think about, and I thought this was cool. All of these kids they're all related, and they made this in honor of their grandma. And when you look at it, and I was trying to figure out, it's either done with wallpaper or it's done with stencils, or it might be done with both. But I just thought it was really neat, and how they put it together, and then they're going to put it up on their barn. But it doesn't have to be solid pieces. It can be lots of fun. You can do some really crazy things out there. And I thought this was kind of neat. Maybe each kid just decided and did the stenciling for their color, and then put it together. But that's more of a log cabin, if you will. If you can see that log cabin print in there, but I thought that was really neat. Several years ago, I had two nieces get married, sisters get married within a week of each other. And so we had the whole family up here in Nebraska, and, then they're up here for 3 or 4 days or a week, and how are you going to entertain them? And so we kind of kept taking the families from place to place, and we had a lot of kids there. So when they come over here, I thought, I had all this extra paint at the office, and I had some at home, and I went to the lumber yard and I had them cut me out just a 2 foot by 2 foot piece, and I primed them all. We had 8 or 10 families. So I primed them all for them. Then I set them up in the barn in the shade and under the carport. And every family then did a barn quilt while they were up here for our wedding rehearsal and wedding and reunion after the whole thing, because we had a week of family up here. But that was really cool. And everybody got to take it home, and nobody had even thought about that. And it entertained them for quite a while. So it was a kind of a neat thing that we did. So in Gage County, they also, which is over by Hastings, I think. Does that sound right, Shane? They have a national homestead monument, and they have a group come in every year, and they do a scavenger hunt on the grounds for the quilt blocks. And you could easily do a scavenger hunt. We're thinking about maybe doing one this year, depending on how many kids sign up, to do a scavenger hunt and fill their cards with whatever information we leave there as they go around and find those blocks. And then our council is going to give some type of an award or a gift or something. We just talked about it the other night at council on Friday night to see if there's some ideas. And it's kind of like, you can do the GPS geocaching, same type of thing. If you've got a group that want to do that, and then combine that together. And you can tie a lot of different things into this, but I know that was one thing that they did for their National Homestead anniversary out there in Gage several years ago, and it was really cool. This is the advertisement that they sent out, and they had here 18 barn quilts that they made for the 150th anniversary, and some ideas. And then they put some history in, some fun facts, and special thanks to the organizations that helped build it, build the tour, and all the information that went out with it. So I thought it was kind of cool. You can do this a lot of different ways. If you just want to work with the kids and paint the barn quilts, that's great. If you want to use it as a celebration for your community, I thought maybe you'd like to see just some samples of flyers and different things, and on how other places have put together ideas and illustrated some of the information for you. So I see, is there anybody in the chat? I mean, is there a question in the chat, Shane, or I see?
No, we're good. Just people are adding to the conversation.
Okay, cool. So just because they're barn quilts doesn't mean they have to go on a barn. And some of these are from in our different communities. I've had them put them on the side of the house or up on the porch or out on the front deck. But before you get ready to do it, you look at your space and see how much space you can have, so you can allocate the right proportion to get it up on front step, however it looks good. My friend Anita Hall, and Shane knows Anita, she'd retired a couple of years ago, and she's been home kind of battling cancer, and kind of been hard on her, but she's doing very well anyway, making progress. That's good. So she's made these little ones, and then she hangs them on her outside on her mailbox, or you can put them by your front door as a greeting as they come in. And I think sometimes those are just as effective as the big ones. I think they can be really cool too. So it doesn't have to be a large one.
Hey, Kim, I stopped your video just because there was a little bit of delay. So we'll see if that's better. But your presentation is still, and your voice is coming through clear.
Very good, because I just started to freak out a little bit because you disappeared. Okay. Okay. So I thought this was interesting, and I've not seen one of these, but I wanted you to see it. They have enlarged a picture of their, a heritage picture of their family, and I suppose had it printed on a canvas, and then put it up on the side of their barn to honor their grandparents or their great grandparents. I just thought that was cool. And so you can do lots of different things, lots of specialized things, if you will, whatever the reason is, whatever your purpose is. There's no right and wrong, I guess is what I want to say. I thought this was very, very cool. And that was important to that family to put that family photo up there. So if you're going to do a workshop, these are some of the things that you need to think about and promote, and you all know that too. I gave you some samples of some brochures. You can put it out on Facebook. You know, we can always do articles. I don't know how many people get the paper still, but I still get the paper, 2 or 3 from different places. If you're going to do registration fee, make sure everybody knows that. And you're going to have to spend, now this says 1 or 2 evenings for the workshop. If you're working with kids, it's going to take longer than that. And that's something that I learned. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you're going to have them bring supplies, or you're going to provide them, just whatever you can. A PowerPoint presentation isn't a bad idea. And if everybody's doing the same one, you can do set your PowerPoint up and put your picture up there and everybody do this one problem. But I just thought I would provide this for you in case you wanted to look at it. Barn quilts come in a gazillion different sizes. So you can do the two big full boards are 8x8s. And you can go clear down to a foot by a foot or 2 feet by 2 feet or a little mini one or tiny one for your mailbox. These are some of the kids that we've had that have done those a little smaller. I got crazy with my kids and we did big ones that first time. And we were just talking about this week if we're going to do it, the big ones again. So I put this at little yellow at the bottom. Check on cutting capabilities before the boards are cut. So I went over to Menards, and you can go to Baumgart's or whoever sells wood where you're at, the lumber yard, and see how big of pieces they can cut before you do that. Or you can, if like me, sometimes I have my husband help me, or it's a 2-man project, both of us do it. Because we're 50 miles away from any big box store. So we don't always have a lot of availability, but make sure they can cut it for you before you announce it all, because that can catch you. These are some other things that you have, but I want to talk a little bit about. We just use painter's cloth to throw down. You can use tarps, but the tarps, if you get paint on them, they get really slick. If you use the painter's cloth down, put it down and you spill paint on it, it kind of absorbs it, doesn't get on your shoes and the kids don't track it so bad. But that's just my experience. We have a lot of picnic tables around my office, so we pulled a lot of those up and the kids kind of stood and painted, which was good. I thought worked a little bit better. Make sure you get the right kind of painter's tape, and it's got to be, get a lot of it, because the kids will go through a lot more than you think, because they'll make mistakes and it isn't, it's cheap, but get a lot of good painter's tape. And then we just use pencils. And you could use foam brushes, but I got the regular brushes because I wanted to teach the kids how to use a regular brush. So that's what we did. And then we did everything with yardsticks or that plumber's line that you can snap for chalk lines. But I found that those will erase. And so we just went back to pencils, which works really well. And then take some hair dryers with you and some fans, because the faster you can dry that paint, the faster you can go. And make sure you get water-based paint for cleanup. That's essential. So this is just, I want to show you this, and I want you to have this if you use this PowerPoint, a couple of design idea websites to look at that has some really great ideas. You can Google, everybody Googles everything anymore. You can Google and go in there and see what they have to say for barn quilts. Pinterest is a great place for that too. There's software you can buy, but start here before you invest, because a lot of the resources are here and it's easy to do. What we did when we got our design pieces is I took a notebook with plastic and put plastic sheets or covers on my designs of the quilt tops, and put them in a notebook, put them in a 3-ring notebook, and then the kids could come in and pick out which one they wanted, which worked really, really well. And then we put them right back in there when we were done, because some of the kids wanted the same ones. But I kind of made templates of everything before they got there, and that seemed to kind of help a lot. I like that. I put this here. I want you to see it. We always think about putting barn quilts or regular quilts together, solid colors always, but this one they went in and did a sponge paint behind, and maybe a sponge paint when they were putting it together too. I mean, you can do all kinds of ideas, and maybe they had a template when they did this. This one looks difficult to me, but I love it. But there's all kinds of ideas you can do. So think about what might be the easiest. I would not start my kids out on something like this, but don't forget about it because I think it's got some real potential. So here's some samples of some quilt blocks, and you can divide them. See, if you do a visual on it, into thirds, and look at all the different angles that you can do, the different things you can do when you divide it that way. So the tricky part is going to be getting that quilt block on that sheet of plywood correctly. So here's thirds. This one's in fourths. Kind of give you a visual there, and there's lots of choices. Then you can go, see there's fourths up in the corner. Then you can go to fifths or sixths, sixteenths. We had one of our kids make this patriotic one on the far right, and it really was sharp, really, really sharp. So that kind of gives you an idea on how to put those together. Now, this handout is what I made a copy for you and put in your resource list. It talks about the steps and supplies, and we talked about them today. Notice down on the bottom left-hand corner of that handout, there's that blue tape, and that person's got, I don't know, it looks like a straight edge or something. Remember, we talked about getting really good painter's tape. Either take your fingernail or something that's very sharp, and that edge of that tape needs to be down very tight on that painted wood to keep the paint from going through as good as you can. It's not going to be perfect, and you might have to go back and fix it, but that's an example to do. Okay, so yeah, and you've got my notes, so that's all right too. So make sure that you use exterior paint. It can be flat or semi-gloss. I like semi-gloss, it works better. You're going to have to paint 2 coats when you do it. So hence, that's why you need the fans and the dryers, hair dryers to make that work. But 2 coats will adhere better. And then check your colors and see what is pleasing to your eye, and we'll go with wherever you're going to put that barn quilt. But I think that works really, really well. You can invest a lot of money in paint. So maybe if you're going to do it for your club, either they bring their own paint if they want a specialized color, or I'm going to provide probably 5 colors, and the kids will have to deal with that because you can invest a lot of money. So can you advance the slide, please?
Yes, I hope so. Is it showing up for you? We should have straight lines.
Straight lines. So we talked about straight lines, and now the one on the right, they took paint somehow and made their straight lines, or a black marker, a permanent marker. You can do that too after you paint it, and that's what I did on some of the kids. Is they were a little bit rough on the edges. So I took a marker and traced them out and see how much better it looks. It really pops that design, and then make sure it's permanent, and that will work very well for you. But that's a little trick you can use. Okay, Shane. So this one, curves are tough, and the kids may want to paint like this person is doing a bluebird, which I'm not artsy craftsy, but I can follow directions. I would try to get the kids to use something with straight lines, but they may come in with an idea, and it's okay to do, but it's going to take a little bit more time to do that. So if this is your first time, stay with the straight lines. Okay. So also on the border, when you're putting your program or your plan together and you're marking out your pattern, think about what type of border do you want, or do you want one? You don't have to have one, but the one in the right-hand corner has 2 separate colors and different widths, and look how it makes that pop. So you need to think about that if you want a border or not. 3 inches for the larger size, because you need to have an adequate border really to make it balance out. And theirs is white, so you may, if you painted your board white, you could leave it that way and then start your pattern from inside, but you're going to have to do some thinking when you put those together. Okay? So this is some of the kids that were working on this, and you can see how that works. If they do a little smaller one, you can do it in the house, in your office, on your front porch, but do it where you have some really good light, and have the kids help you. Don't do it for them. Try to teach them how to do it and get it started, but you're going to have some adults with you to help supervise. Kids will love to do this, but you have to have it started correctly, because, or you just have to paint over the whole thing and start over. So draw your design on the board, and we just use pencils and yardsticks. Okay. And we did it on the floor. This is the Osborne family, and she brought the 2 girls with her, and they were making one for their house. So they worked on it as a project all together. Okay. Measure, measure, measure. If you've got a transparent quilt ruler, that's super, but you don't have to have one. But you're going to have to be very careful and precise when you measure. And the less pieces, the less busy that quilt block is, the easier it's going to be for your first one. Okay. Now, measuring is huge. And once you get your design on, that's great. Where you will have the most problem with your kids is teaching them how to put their tape. And you can explain and explain and explain to tape around that diamond or that pattern, but double check with them, because they cannot keep that concept. And I don't know how many of those boards I helped retape because they taped on the wrong side of where they were going to paint. So that's a concept you're going to have to continue to do. And this is Amanda and her mom's retaping because she didn't get it on the outside. They always want to put it on the inside. So double check that, because that's going to drive you crazy. Okay. So you can see all the helpers, notice all the adults that are helping out too. And on this bottom right-hand side, when they paint, you will paint over the edge of that tape, make a couple of coats, and make sure it's really thick and bright. And notice also we use little Dixie cups with paint. You don't need a ton of paint. And you probably have a gallon there. And they did theirs in the gymnasium, but you can just use a little Dixie cup and put the paint in that, and that seems to work very well. Okay. And what we had them do, after we went through a little bit of this, is we had them take sticky notes and put on where they wanted certain colors painted. So this is that patriotic one. One of my kids did this one. And we marked what needed to be white or what needed to be red or what needed to be blue, whatever it was. But those little sticky notes help remind the kids kind of what that pattern is supposed to look like. Okay. So use, when you put the tape, put it down with your fingers and then burnish it with the straight edge. Or if I've got fake nails, I can use my fake nails on it and push it on there, make it sure it's really tight, because the paint, especially if it's really runny, will run underneath that tape. So those little straight edges would work really, really well, but a ruler does too. Okay. And see, for the rougher edges on the bottom, if you paint over the edge with that painter's tape, it works really well. And I talked to Diane, my secretary, today, because we did this together 10 years ago. I pulled that tape after the second coat. It's fairly dry, but it's not completely dry. I pulled that tape off very carefully before it's completely dry. And it doesn't, it seems to come off very clean. But we did some touch up with some little bitty brushes when you're done too. So just a hint. Okay. And you can see how the taping, this is just, and we just use little cups. The taping and the little sticky notes really, really help when you're working on a pattern. So you don't get lost in it. And even adults do that. So that's why I put this here. You got paint the first section, let it dry, and then paint it again, however dark you want it. Okay. Yeah, sticky notes. There you go. Yep. Okay. And it's great if you can let it dry overnight. We had kids coming in and out of I have a big front porch on my office, and we have a storage area. So over the period of 2 weeks, because we had 15 kids and they would all come different times, we'd get them out and let them work on it. If you got a place you can leave them, that works great. We did something down in Laurel here a couple of years ago, and we left them at the city building. The city building let us use it. We set out all kinds of big tables, and a lot of the moms and grandmas came. And I think they did 45 in probably 2 nights a week for 2 weeks and got it all done. But it's best if you can let it dry overnight. So we would try to get 2 coats of paint on and then let the kids go home. And, you know, everybody's on limited time anyway. So, okay. And we talked about more than one coat, but I wanted to show you, we used hair dryers and that works really, really well. So and look at this one on the left. Some paint covers better than others. And even if it's the same kind of paint, it's a different color. I don't know why. So make sure you have the right depth of color you want in there before you're done. This little gal over here had to paint that maroon color 2 or 3 times to get it how she wanted it. So double check that, because the kids are going to want to paint it once and pull their tape and go. So, okay. And this is one of our projects. You know, I was talking about those drop cloths. Some kids want to work on the floor, some work standing up, but this works very, very well. And those drop cloths, they're not very expensive, and they were sure nice to have. And, you know, try to get 1 per child if you're going to do a big one. Okay. Now, Hannah did this one. This was that patriotic one, and she wanted to do it standing up. If you're going to add a second color, that's okay. Go ahead, Shane. If you want to add a second color, that's great. Depending on how you've taped it. I mean, sometimes you can put more than one on if you watch. But we use regular brushes. These ladies are doing that. And you can use those sponge brushes, but I want the kids to learn how to use a brush. So I got them the regular brushes. Make them clean out their own brushes. Okay. I just think this lady was it's a cross. She's standing in between it. Once you push it together, it's a giant cross, but I really thought it was pretty. So I wanted you to see a big one as they put it together. Okay. And the kids will pick all types of colors and things that they want to do. But the hair dryers really helped dry the paint. And depending on, you know, some of those hot Kansas days, it's really humid. Sometimes it's going to be hard to dry that paint. So do the best that you can. Okay. Now, if you got older 4-Hers, this is Amber, and she come back and she's helped a lot, but maybe while they're waiting on theirs to dry, they can help the younger ones. This is a great place for some of those older 4-H to mentor the younger ones and help out. And it's good to see, because you can see the growth in those older 4-Hers as they interact with kids. So, okay. And your final coating, we used polyurethane, a water-based. You can use boat sealer. I'm afraid it might yellow. We were kind of afraid of that. You can use spray acrylic enamel, that spray enamel, and that works too, but it's a little more expensive. And we just bought the polyurethane and painted it on. And then you have to teach the kids how to use paint strokes evenly and don't leave bubbles. And, there's a lot of things that you can teach as you go through that. So regular polyurethane works really, really well. Okay. And then there's hanging. Use the appropriate tools. Okay, if you want to go ahead, Shane. This is just a sample of some different techniques to hang a quilt. Those telehandlers work really, really well, but a lot of times the guys are going to have to help put it up. This is over there at Bruning. Okay. And this is a big one. This is a really big one that they put together. If you've got a large one, you're going to have to think about how you're going to get it up on the barn too. Think about that before you start painting it. Make sure your kids understand that too. And you may have to reinforce the barn door behind it. Make sure you're putting it on a really solid spot. Okay. Down in Pawnee County, the local power company came out and helped hang them, which I thought was really, really cool. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And if they buy in and you're doing something for your county as a big project, they may come help too if they're out. Okay. So short and sweet, and I'm sorry for the interruptions, but that's my take on barn quilts and working with kids. And I told Shane too, I'm available. He's got my email address. You can sure call me or email me with any questions or any ideas or anything that you'd like to share.
All right, we've got time. If anyone has any questions or comments or ideas, thank you very much, Kim. That was awesome. And I'm glad we were able to make it all work and get you back on the on the thing. All right, ideas, questions, places where people think they might use this.
You don't have a state quilt, barn quilt for state, a class?
No, not right now.
So you might think about that, or maybe add it into the heritage. It's a great place to put in for heritage. We put it into our quilt program. We run it under our quilt department. But it hasn't been that many years ago that we put it in, and we have a lot that come to state fair. So it's a really cool thing. And I like to take them because I can't break them when I'm hauling them.
Always good. So while you guys are thinking of questions, I threw up. So I did order just enough of the Quilt Quest CD that I will have one for everyone I'll be able to send out. And a reminder that we do have 2 more of these next week. So we have one on financial literacy and one on wildlife we're going to cover.
Thanks for letting me come and share. It was really great. And now I'm ready. I'm ready for summer because I've got all my stuff together and ready to go. So